Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It happened in a small town in Illinois, just off a lonely stretch of highway. The McDonald's there wasn't anything special, one of those 24-hour locations that looked worn down from the outside but stayed busy enough at night to keep a skeleton crew working. One of those crew members was Lisa, a 19-year-old who had just taken the job to save up for college. She worked the night shift, usually from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was mostly quiet. Truckers, late-night drunks, the occasional cop. Nothing she couldn't handle. Until that November. It started with a strange man who came in every night around 3:17 a.m. Always the same time. Always the same order. A filet-o-fish, no sauce, and a small black coffee. He never said a word beyond the order. Never smiled. He wore a dark hoodie pulled low over his face and sunglasses at night. At first, Lisa thought he was just another eccentric local, maybe someone with a sleep disorder or something worse. But then she noticed he never touched the food. He would sit in the farthest corner booth, staring at the entrance, the food untouched in front of him, until the sun started to rise. Then he'd leave without a word, leaving the filet-o-fish cold and the coffee full. After a week of this, Lisa started to get uneasy. She asked her coworker Derek if he noticed anything weird about the guy. Derek gave her a strange look and said, "What guy?" She laughed at first, thinking he was joking. But when she pressed, Derek swore up and down that he hadn't seen anyone fitting that description. Even the manager, who reviewed the security tapes to prove Lisa wrong, found nothing. Just Lisa behind the counter, talking to herself. No one ever walked in at 3:17 a.m. But Lisa knew what she saw. The man was real. He was there every single night. And then it got worse. One night, she decided to confront him. When he came in, she tried to make eye contact. His sunglasses hid his expression, but she could feel it. He knew she was watching. She called out to him, asking why he never ate the food. He tilted his head slightly and said one word, "Soon." The next morning, Lisa didn't go home. She stayed until the manager arrived and demanded to see the security footage herself. What she saw chilled her. At 3:17 a.m., she could be seen clearly behind the counter, staring into the dining area. Then she began to talk to no one. Her lips moved, her gestures became agitated, but there was no man, no order, just her, alone, spiraling into what looked like madness. She called in sick the next night, but her phone kept ringing around 3:17 a.m., unknown number, never a message, just static when she picked up. She blocked the number. The calls kept coming. That same week, 2 employees quit. One of them, Derek, stopped showing up entirely. They found him weeks later in a motel 2 towns over, holed up in a room with every mirror covered. When police finally entered, they found the words "he sees through the glass" scrawled all over the walls in ketchup. He never spoke again. Lisa finally returned to work, hoping the man was gone. But the next night, as the clock hit 3:17 a.m., the door opened. The man entered, as calm as ever. He placed the same order, only this time he smiled. A wide, unnatural grin that stretched too far, like it was carved into his face. He didn't go to the booth this time. He stood at the counter, staring at Lisa. Then he spoke. "Would you like to see where the others went?" She tried to scream, but the words stuck in her throat. The lights flickered. The fryer began to hiss, popping louder than usual. In the reflection of the drive-through window behind her, she saw them, faces. Pale, wide-eyed, mouths open in silent screams, pressed against the glass like they were inside it. She ran, out the door, into the cold night. She never returned to that job. That McDonald's shut down a month later after 3 employees went missing during a single week. Police chalked it up to a gas leak, hallucinations. Locals say the building's been abandoned ever since. But sometimes when you drive past it around 3:17 a.m., the lights flicker on. And if you look closely at the windows, you might see someone sitting alone in the farthest booth. The filet-o-fish still untouched.
Story number 2.
Late one night, a young man named Jake took a job at a McDonald's on the outskirts of a small town, known more for its eerie silence after dark than its bustling crowds. The store had been running 24/7, but recently the night shifts had been filled with strange, unexplained happenings that made most employees quit. Jake, desperate for work and not easily scared, thought it was just rumors and took the job. The first few nights were uneventful. until around 2 a.m. That's when the lights in the dining area would flicker, and the usually cheerful McDonald's music would distort into a low guttural hum that sent chills down his spine. One night, while cleaning the dining room, Jake noticed something off. The mannequins in the kids' play area, those bright, smiling Ronald McDonald figures, seemed different. Their painted smiles looked too wide, almost sinister, and their eyes felt like they followed him no matter where he moved. One evening, Jake was restocking the freezer when he heard the sliding doors to the kitchen swing open behind him. He turned sharply, but no one was there. The only sound was the faint sizzle of fries cooking. Brushing it off, he went back to work. But then he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck and heard a whispered voice say, "Don't stay too late." The voice was raspy, almost inhuman. His heart pounded, but when he looked around, the kitchen was empty except for the glowing fryer and the flickering overhead lights. Jake told himself it was just stress and maybe the building's old wiring messing with his mind. Days passed, and the strange incidents escalated. Customers who came in late at night seemed wrong. One woman ordered a simple coffee, but when Jake handed it to her, she smiled in a way that made his skin crawl. No eyes, just black, empty sockets. She whispered, "They're watching." Jake started to see shadows darting just out of the corner of his vision. Whispers echoed through the vents in the back room, where old equipment was stored. One night, the manager left him alone in the store to handle a rush, but instead of customers, Jake was met with silence. Then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, the familiar Ronald McDonald mannequins emerged from the shadows, no longer static. Their faces twisted, their smiles dripping with something dark and wet. They moved closer, their hollow eyes burning with a terrible hunger. Jake froze as they surrounded him, whispering in unison, "Join us, forever." He ran through the darkened kitchen, heart hammering, the flickering emergency lights barely lighting his path. When he burst out into the parking lot, the mannequins vanished. He never returned to that McDonald's again. Weeks later, the store was shut down indefinitely. Rumors swirled about disappearances and strange noises, but for Jake, the worst part was the nightmares. Visions of those grinning figures, always beckoning, always watching, in the quiet corners of fast food restaurants long after closing time.
Story number 3.
It started on a late October night at a McDonald's on the edge of a small town. The kind of place where the parking lot was mostly empty after midnight, and the flickering fluorescent lights inside cast long shadows across the greasy floors. The night shift was just beginning to drag when a young employee named Mike noticed something odd. An old man, dressed in a stained yellow jacket, sitting alone in the corner booth, staring at the wall as if waiting for something only he could see. Mike was new, nervous, and keen to keep the job, so he kept his distance. But every few minutes, he glanced over and caught the man's eyes. Empty, like black pits that didn't quite belong to the world of the living. The old man never ordered anything, never spoke a word, just sat there, unmoving, except for a slight rocking back and forth. Mike's coworkers joked nervously, whispering about the McDonald's ghost, a local legend no one took seriously, except now, Mike wasn't so sure. Around 3 a.m., the store suddenly went dark for a few seconds, and when the lights flickered back on, the old man was gone. Mike's relief was short-lived. When he went to clean the booth, he found strange scratches carved into the table, deep erratic claw marks, fresh and glistening like they were made moments ago. His heart pounded as he realized there was no way the old man could have disappeared without the front door opening. The security camera footage showed nothing but static during those seconds of blackout. Mike tried to shake it off, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. The next night, the old man returned, but this time, his eyes glowed faintly red in the dark corner of the booth. Mike summoned the courage to approach him and asked if he needed help. The man's lips curled into a twisted smile that stretched too wide, like a nightmare carving itself into flesh, and he whispered, "They're still here." Mike's skin crawled as he asked, "Who?" The man's face blurred, distorting as if melting, then shifted into dozens of faces, angry, screaming, begging. The old man vanished, leaving behind a faint smell of burnt grease and decay. Terrified, Mike ran to the manager's office and demanded they check the cameras again. When they did, The footage showed dozens of shadowy figures wandering the restaurant, some behind counters, some standing still near the fryers, all with hollow eyes and twisted expressions. No one believed Mike's story, chalking it up to exhaustion or stress. But that night after closing, Mike heard whispers coming from the vents calling his name. He found his coworkers missing the next day, vanished without a trace. The McDonald's closed abruptly, abandoned and left to rot. Years later, the building still stands, but the locals say if you visit at night, you'll see flickering lights and hear muffled screams from inside. Some say those lost souls trapped behind the counters are waiting for someone else to take their place. Someone who will never leave, just like Mike. The old yellow jacket? They say it sometimes appears on the coat rack near the back, stained with grease and something far darker. And if you're unlucky enough to wear it, you won't be seen again.
Story number 4.
Late one night, around 2 a.m., a young man named Kevin was finishing his shift at a 24-hour McDonald's on the edge of a quiet town. The restaurant was nearly empty, save for a few tired night owls and a couple of delivery drivers waiting for their orders. Kevin had worked there for nearly a year and had heard some unsettling rumors from older employees. Strange noises, unexplained shadows, even whispers when no one else was around. He'd always chalked it up to an overactive imagination and the eerie silence that comes with late-night shifts. But that night, something felt different. As Kevin wiped down the counters, he noticed the back door, usually locked, was slightly ajar. The cold night air slipped through, carrying a faint metallic scent that made his skin crawl. He was sure he had locked it after the last delivery. A chill ran down his spine as he walked toward the door, expecting to find a loose latch or maybe a careless coworker. No one was there. Suddenly, the lights flickered and dimmed. The soft hum of the kitchen equipment faltered, plunging the restaurant into near darkness. Kevin's heart pounded. He fumbled for his phone to turn on the flashlight, but it was dead, drained inexplicably despite being fully charged before his shift. Then, from the shadows near the fryer, a soft shuffling noise echoed. Kevin strained to see, but the dim emergency lights barely illuminated the greasy floor. The sound grew louder, more deliberate, like footsteps dragging something heavy. He called out, voice shaking, but no one answered. Suddenly, the deep fryer sizzled wildly, flames flaring up for a brief moment. Kevin stumbled back, tripping over a mop bucket and hit the ground hard. When he looked up, standing inches from his face was a figure, tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to suck the light from the room. Its face was obscured by a greasy McDonald's employee hat, twisted and stained. Kevin scrambled to his feet and ran toward the exit, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Trapped, he turned to see the figure advancing, silent but unstoppable. Desperation clawed at him as he darted behind the counter, searching for anything to defend himself. The shadowy figure reached out with long skeletal fingers. Kevin's scream echoed through the empty restaurant as the lights suddenly snapped back on. The figure vanished, leaving behind only the lingering scent of burnt fries and something far more sinister. The next morning, the morning crew found Kevin collapsed near the front door, pale and trembling, mumbling about the ghost in the fryer. Management dismissed it as exhaustion or a prank gone too far, but Kevin never returned to work. His phone records showed calls to him that no one else could hear, and security footage caught fleeting glimpses of a dark shape lurking in the kitchen after hours, always just out of clear sight. Employees who worked the graveyard shift after Kevin reported strange sensations, cold spots, whispers calling their names, and the unmistakable feeling that something unseen was watching, waiting. To this day, the McDonald's on that quiet edge of town is avoided after midnight. Some say the fryer is haunted by a restless spirit of a former employee who vanished years ago, and others whisper about a darkness born from the grease and grime, feeding off the endless flow of late-night customers. Whatever it is, it's real, and it's still hungry.